Got him.
Can snatch victory from the depths of defeat. I've nowhere to keep that.
Bro, am I done? Did I ascend to the next level? Ascend. Wait, what is this? I have to do this 3 fucking times? Bro. You've got to be fist fucking me.
If you're feeling suicidal, you've come to the right place.
I am Razio.
What's up, you beautiful bastards? Welcome again, and I know this video is a little different than what I normally do, as my channel normally covers mostly MMORPGs. I have to talk about Path of Exile 2, especially the endgame. Now, before I get into that, I will say the campaign and the majority of the getting to endgame experience is absolutely wonderful in Path of Exile 2. It's totally worth it. But the endgame, I'm not going to pull any punches, is a huge, giant, smelly piece of shit, and I'm going to tell you why. This is coming from someone who's played quite a few ARPGs, Diablo 1, Diablo 2, 3, 4. I've been playing them for a long time. They're not my main genre, but I really enjoy them. But I'm not someone who rushes in and can't wait for a new season of an ARPG. I've also played quite a bit of Path of Exile 1. And in Path of Exile 2, I picked Warrior, and I'm currently almost level 93 and have been in endgame for quite a while. And it needs to be talked about. So let's just get into it. Okay, point number 1. Armor being absolutely worthless. At this point now, it's common knowledge in the community that armor does practically nothing, and it's terrible to invest into it at all. As a warrior, this hits me especially hard since I already can't move and attack at the same time like all the ranged classes can. And to top it off, my attacks are all slow as fuck. There is no way to counter this since the talent trees have very few bonuses to things like max life and pumping up your resistances a lot. There's a few, but not many. This means I spend the majority of my time dodge rolling instead of attacking because of the next point on the list. There are way too many one-shot mechanics. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I was one-shot from 100% to 0 despite having like 12k armor, 80% resist to all elements, and it's absurd that this is even happening at all. One-shots in any game are not fun and an instant killer of motivation to play, especially considering the next point. Death in Path of Exile's endgame is far too punishing. It's already bad that after you reach level 90, the amount of experience it takes to level is absolutely absurd and overtuned, over the top. But to top all of that off, when you die, you lose a metric ton of XP, your waystone, and all the materials you spent creating said waystone, also all the modifiers that location had on the map from the surrounding towers, etc. You can't even go back in and figure out if it was a skill issue, a build issue, or a developer issue. It's dumb as hell that you can spend hours playing the game and actually end up behind where you started in almost every measurable metric. This needs to be fixed as soon as possible. Crafting? Don't get me started. It's practically non-existent, and that makes it even worse because in this game, the items and itemization is absolutely awful. Path of Exile 1 had a crafting table, quite a few other methods in creating the gear that you wanted for your build. In Path of Exile 2, it's all RNG on RNG on RNG. I think in my entire journey to level 92, I got a grand total of 2 or 3 items from drops that I actually kept for myself. Everything else, and those said drops I just talked about, were eventually replaced with items I bought on the trade site. This makes no sense, and it seems to be a common problem I see in ARPG releases these days. I mean, it happened in Diablo 3, in Diablo 4, and now definitely in Path of Exile 2, where a game about loot has no loot or terrible loot. Why does this keep happening? Why is this so hard to fix? And it's likely because developers want to drag out the end game. And that goes into, I just talked about trading, the market itself. The market itself right now is so beyond fucked. And the reason why is because the rarity stat on items, which I'm sure anybody who plays PoE2 is now aware of, is out of control. Rarity is far too necessary in order to get any kind of currency. As a warrior, it's very difficult for me to stack this stat in my build, since when I do, my build won't function as well and further add to my totally common one-shot deaths. I mean, I have around right now on my character 120-ish% of rarity, all my gear combined. And to even start getting higher tier items more commonly, like divine orbs, exalted and all that, you need upwards of 500%. This is not fun. And it demotivates me to continue, since now that the market is demanding like 10 plus divines for any item that can help, improve your character. Let's not forget that because crafting is non-existent, there is actually no real use for divine orbs, which will mean that it's only going to get further inflated. Using your divine orbs or any of your currency to try to make your own gear is so RNG heavy, it's pointless. The rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer. Okay, now let's say something about the trials. They're absolute ass and they block progression. Now, I was not a huge fan of the trials in Path of Exile 1, but I would gladly do those for hours and hours over the current trials found in Path of Exile 2. The honor system is absolutely one of the dumbest things I've ever seen implemented, and just an extra health bar that kills you. It's so stupid. The RNG in floor selection is way over the top, and the chaos trial modifiers are far too punishing and can brick an attempt very early on. I mean, I was able to get all my ascendancy points by myself, but the process was extremely frustrating and felt very just unfun and unfair. This entire system needs to be overhauled, especially considering you need to do it in order to unlock, the most build-defining skill points in the game in your ascendancies. Which brings me to my next point. Boss fights in this game are absolutely amazing, but they're far too rare in endgame. Path of Exile 2 has some of the best designed boss fights I've ever played in the genre, yet it boggles my mind that they're used so little. Nearly every map in the end game should have a boss fight, in my opinion. Also, the fact that the most desired and rewarding boss fights in the game that are required to progress the Atlas talent tree are locked behind long, boring, frustrating, very grindy things that you have to do over and over and over. And to top that all off, if you eventually do find one and you die, you lose everything. You have to find another one and regrind it all over again. You'll find this point repeats throughout this theme that keeps going throughout the end game, that I'm talking about here, is that everything in the end game's design seems to be in direct conflict with what the game taught you during the campaign and the direction the game was going during the campaign. Everything is a 180 and just overly punishing and bullshit. I mean, it seems to me that the entirety of the end game had about as much attention placed on it as our government's placed on the Epstein client list. And
That's really fucked up.
Anyway, let's move on to the next point on my list. The whole map system is absolute trash. The endgame mapping system is flawed in nearly every single way. For example, creating tier 16 maps is a pain in the ass, since tier 15 maps corrupt far more often into tier 14 than 16 in my own experience. Also, getting the modifiers on them that are desirable is, once again, just a shitload of RNG. And why can't I zoom out on the map more instead of having to scroll around forever to see where I want to go? In Path of Exile 1, you had a pretty clear, direct path on where you wanted to go. Path of Exile 2 is just so random all over the place. Again, the maps, see my previous comment about death penalties and how absurd they are in this game. The tower system is just boring. It's a drag. Most towers are wasted maps because of how confined and short they are, not to mention how, condensed they are, where you get easy to get stuck in hallways, not to mention the grind of having to find tomes that are actually good for your towers to hold. The Citadel quest, by the way, is way too grindy to get to pinnacle bosses, too long, and the game gives you no clear indicator of what direction to even go to find the fucking things. They can take you a couple of hours or 300 plus hours to find a single one. And if you fail, as I said earlier, it's over. Start searching again. This is painstakingly stupid and kills my desire to give a shit. Okay, next point. 99% of uniques are absolute garbage. Now, I get that uniques aren't like legendaries in Diablo, and I'm fine with that. But the fact that almost all of them are complete junk makes me want to drink bleach. It should be an exciting moment when that ping hits when a unique drops, not an, oh look, another shard for attempting to make more useless items. Uniques should be build-defining items for specific builds and classes, and almost all should have at least some use of some kind to make them more valuable. Right now, they're just wasted space, even as chance shards and chance currency. Okay, this one's not as big, but I need to say it. Strong boxes are absolutely worthless. Seriously, I don't even click them anymore. They're quite a waste of time and prime real estate, actually, for getting one shot because I can't see jack or shit in the smoke they put out. Redesign them from the ground up or just remove them at this point. They're wasted tower key map modifiers. All right, going back to trade a little bit here. The trade site that's set up. Now, I appreciate that trade in this game is so much easier in games than like Diablo 4 or 3 ever was. And even Diablo 2, but the trade site is an absolute nightmare. Please, please, please make it possible just to buy an item that someone's posted straight out of their stash instead of spending so much time just trying to get a response from someone on an item, you know, because you want their item, but they're busy doing a map, or they're AFK half the time, or they're just not paying attention, or they don't want to leave their map, or, you know, God forbid they're in a trial where they can't leave or they'll lose it. It's just mind-numbingly frustrating to sit there trying to buy items from other players. Okay, next point. We're getting near the end here. Maps in both mapping and campaign are way too big and the majority of the time way too empty. The maps in this game are just way too big, period, point blank. The map sizes in this game result in way too much backtracking and wandering around while nothing happens. To top it off, the mob density in this game is far too little, even when you're juicing and stacking pack size and the amount of magic modifiers on keys and your tomes or whatever. More killing, less walking, especially since grinding gear has made all of us so much slower in this game than in Path of Exile 1. Okay, my main final point, rares and magic monsters need addressing. Please make it easier for us to see what modifiers are on a rare, especially as like a warrior melee class where I'm having to dodge roll 24/7 and can't go anywhere near a lot of the effects or it'll one-shot me. It makes it hard to try to mouse over to see what they are. Magic mobs should glow with a blue outline and rares should glow with a yellow outline or something so we know we're fighting one instead of realizing it because we either got one shot or notice that they aren't dying instantly like everything else. In addition, if we have to kill all the rares in order to complete a map, the indicator of where they are should show up much sooner, especially if you're going to keep these giant-ass maps. Ultimately, guys, these are my thoughts and my feelings towards the end game in Path of Exile 2. It's bad. It's quite literally the worst end game I've ever played. And all the difficulty and challenge that was in the campaign that I really, really loved is not really there anymore in endgame. It's all just frustration masking as difficulty, like being a pain in your ass, the game going out of your way to fuck you, out of its way, excuse me, to screw you, just to make you frustrated. I mean, again, the biggest issues that I all listed there, the biggest thing that stands out is everything is so far away from what the campaign set up the game was going to be. The direction the developers seem to want the game to go to is polar opposite in endgame. Why is death so punishing? Why is it always, you know, every map is either it's so mind-numbingly boring because you're one-shotting everything, to other maps where it's, you know, your just anxiety's at a constant high because anything at any point in time can one-shot you. And the fact that you get one try on a boss, how do you even learn the mechanics like that? I guess Grinding Gear Games wants us to just go on YouTube and find guides to bosses we've never even fought yet. But anyway, I digress, guys. What are your thoughts down below? Am I way off base? Am I close, or am I spot on the money? If you like my content, please subscribe. And obviously, if you don't, thumbs down and, you know, just tell me to fuck myself. I don't care. But I really appreciate all the support, guys. I am streaming on Twitch. I'm streaming mostly MMOs, but occasionally I throw Path of Exile in there and a Twitch schedule, official schedule, will be up in January. But anyway, guys, appreciate it. No more rambling. Keep it real.